power from the sun, the wind, and water to chart a completely different path. So I'm Sebla from the Fossil Fuel Treaty, and I'm honored to share with you today our incredible speakers. We have the Mayor of Belém, Edmilson Rodriguez, was just arrived. Thank you so much for being here. And we have the Deputy Mayor of Paris, in charge of the ecological transition, climate change, water and energy, Dan Left. And we have the Lord Mayor of Hobart, Tasmania, Anna Reynolds. So thank you. These mayors come here today representing Belém, Paris, and Hobart, yes, but they also come as messengers of the 100 cities and subnational governments who are backing the call for a fossil fuel treaty. The Fossil Fuel Treaty is a global call for justice. It's a call to end the expansion of the weapons of mass destruction that are pummeling our planet to collapse, coal, oil, and gas, a fair phase out of fossil fuels with wealthy countries that are the most responsible for the crisis leading the way, and support for a global just transition with finance and technology transfers for economic diversification, renewable energy expansion, and development alternatives. This proposal is grounded in global justice and equity to fill the gaping policy void that we sit with today. Countries are on track to produce 110% more fossil fuels than what can be burned to limit warming to a maximum of 1.5 degrees, and there's no international mechanism to course correct. So this is happening because we have been hyper-focused on reducing demand and emissions from fossil fuels, but production has been reigning wild and free. How do we tackle a crisis if we don't go to the source? The Fossil Fuel Treaty is a necessary proposal to fill this void and complement the Paris Agreement with a binding plan to free us from the grip of coal, oil, and gas. The Fossil Fuel Treaty is gaining momentum every single day. We have support now from 8 nation states, a growing bloc of 8 nation states, some of which are fossil fuel producers, who are joining forces for a negotiating mandate for a fossil fuel treaty. And they are backed by thousands of scientists, health professionals, hundreds of parliamentarians, and faith leaders, more than 2,000 organizations, including the World Health Organization and the European Parliament, 101 Nobel laureates, and of course, 100 subnational governments and cities. From Paris to Lima, Calcutta to Sydney, London to Port-au-Prince, California to Rome, Vancouver to Belém, and Hobart to Makati, there are now 100 cities and subnational governments that are calling for a fossil fuel treaty. That coal, oil, and gas are hurtling our climate towards collapse is a reality that cities on the front line of the crisis know all too well, as hotspots of energy consumption, carbon emissions, and climate destruction all at once. Cities are taking urgent action to protect their communities from flooding, heat waves, wildfires, and choking air pollution, while restricting the social license of the fossil fuel industry, banning fossil fuel advertising, electrifying buildings and transport, and ending fossil fuel financing. But they know that the ultimate way to protect their communities is to phase out the leading cause of this crisis, which is fossil fuels. So as crucial players in the global just transition, together these 100 cities and subnationals are building collective pressure from below to make fossil fuels history, propel a global just transition, and influence governments to negotiate a fossil fuel treaty. 100 cities and subnational leaders are echoing a resounding call for a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty that world leaders must follow.
Other cities inside the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty.
Je trouve que cette initiative est une initiative extrêmement importante, parce que ce n'est pas une initiative qui vient de lever le sang ou nous assigner à quelque chose. C'est une initiative qui porte aussi la méthode pour aller vers autre chose.
declaration of the 100 cities and subnationals calling for a fossil fuel treaty. And now we'll hear from our panelists, starting with the city of Paris. Paris was an early champion of the fossil fuel treaty, joining the call in 2022. And as the host city of the historic Paris climate talks at COP21, your city is now championing the need for a proposed international agreement to equitably phase out fossil fuels and transition to renewable energy for all. What steps is Paris taking to help phase out fossil fuels, both in your own jurisdiction, but also pushing for global climate action through the Fossil Fuel Treaty and in your climate plan? And what is your message to other cities around the world?
Thank you, Seble. So why we have joined in 2022 the initiative for the treaty? Because the effects of climate change have already begun to disrupt Paris territory with major consequences on infrastructures and communities. Paris has already warmed up by more than 2 degrees in the territory of Paris. We know now that 50 degrees heat peak is possible, and in Paris, and our responsibility is to anticipate this eventuality and protect inhabitants, especially the most fragile in our city. The acceleration of climate change threatens health and living conditions for Parisians. It's clear that there is a high hospitalization peak during heat waves, as well as excess mortality in Paris. Cities and our city and cities in general and communities pay an exorbitant cost for climate change effects. Also in Paris, it is costly to reduce for us greenhouse gas emission. It is costly to adapt our city to climate change consequences. Our dependence on fossil fuels diminished day by day our chance of meeting the Paris Agreement targets. So with our new climate plan, we are initiating the phase out of fossil fuels from the Parisian territory. We will take actions through retrofitting, the continuation of our efforts in energy efficiency, the elimination of the last oil-fired boilers in the area, connection to the district heating network, and by greening our energy mix. But Paris and local governments cannot act alone. We need international cooperation to address fossil fuels issues by actively supporting the creation and adoption of the Treaty of Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation. We can send a strong message to industries and investors. The time has come to abandon fossil fuels and make a determined choice in favor of low-carbon energy sources. We call for ending support for oil, gas, and coal. So we have to leave fossil fuels in the ground once for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor Dan Left. We're inspired by the actions that Paris is taking to end their dependence on fossil fuels. We're now going to travel to Tasmania. And I wanted to ask you, Mayor Anna Reynolds, you're one of the 9 global board members of the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, which represents more than 12,500 cities and local governments around the world, and have been instrumental in the launch of the Mayor's Declaration for the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty. So could you tell us more about the Mayor's Declaration and why and how cities around the world should join this? And also your message as one of the 100 city leaders calling for a fossil fuel treaty to facilitate an equitable phase out of fossil fuels. What is your message to world leaders to follow suit?
Thank you so much, Seble, and it's wonderful to share the stage with these 2 fantastic mayors. The Global Covenant of Mayors is an amazing alliance of more than 12,000 cities and quite small towns and big cities right around the world, and we're united in our commitment to taking climate action, and we're united in measuring our emissions in a common with a common formula so we can be really sure of the impact that all of these cities are taking. And you'll hear quite a lot this week about local action and city action because it's going to be a key theme of COP28. And you'll hear a lot about it because there is so many amazing stories about city action, whether it's in the transport sector, the waste sector, the energy sector. I mean, cities are working right across all of these different sectors. And all of our evidence from our GCOM network shows that cities and towns that are part of our city network are more ambitious than their national government. So it is really the cities and the mayors that are inspiring action in their countries and often dragging their national governments to take even firmer action. So all of this great work is happening, but of course it is undermined every time we take steps to reduce emissions through transport or energy or waste. It's then undermined if the fossil fuel sector continues to expand. So, you know, we have to look beyond our own actions and our own city work, even though it's fantastic and it's positive. You know, unless we're also using our voices as city leaders, we will find that our good work is being undermined by the negative work that's happening with the fossil fuel industry and governments that are keen to support continued extraction. So the reason that it was a good plan to have a mayor's statement as well as cities committing is because there are hundreds of thousands of mayors around the world and they have very different governance models. So some of them have executive power, some of them can only do things if their entire council supports it. Some of them have limits in what they can do, but they're all community leaders. And through the mayor's statement, it does allow mayors who might find that for political reasons they can't get their city to commit, or that their city administration doesn't have the resources to be part of the treaty campaign in a more developed way, they can actually show their individual support as a community leader, as a city leader, through signing the mayor's statement. And if we could get thousands of mayors supporting the treaty in the next few years, that would be a really positive step, because we know that people recognise their mayors, they understand their mayors, they trust their mayors, and so getting those individual mayors to sign on to the statement would be a really positive step. In terms of the message to leaders, it really is that the message about fossil fuels is really getting through. I think I've just seen in the last couple of years, through the leadership taken by the treaty campaign and through others, people are now very clear that, you know, we're onto the fossil fuel sector. We understand that coal, oil and gas are the main causes of this crisis, and we need to call out these industries, and the governments that are just pretending that they can talk about net zero and that everything's going to be okay. I think we're really on to you, and the community and mayors and other organisations will hold you to account, and that includes my own government. Australia is one of the biggest fossil fuel producers in the world, and we will be calling them out because, you know, the continued extraction of fossil fuels is not okay. So that's going to be a really important thing that city governments and mayors will be doing in Australia in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mayor Anna Reynolds. I think it's important to put a light on the fact of how ambitious cities and local governments have been in advance of their national governments in calling for this fossil fuel treaty and understanding and naming the cause. I want to go last to the mayor of Belém. In 2022, Belém became the first Brazilian city and the first Amazonian city to back the fossil fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, and to call for the Amazon to become a and in 2025 you will take this call for the Amazon to be a fossil fuel non-proliferation zone, and of the fossil fuel treaty to the international stage as the host of COP 30. So can you tell us the importance of Amazonian cities championing the call for a fossil fuel treaty and the momentum for this campaign that you will be taking to COP30? And this will be in Portuguese, so we've shared with you the Interactio app for the interpretation if you don't speak Portuguese. Thank you.
Ok?
Bem, bom dia. Uma honra participar desta mesa que tem paridade de gênero. Dizer que este debate é um debate imprescindível. É a luta da humanidade, se aproxima de 8 bilhões de vidas, contra 8, 10 grandes corporações que lucram com a produção da destruição gradativa, permanente e cada vez mais profunda do equilíbrio social e ambiental. A crise ecológica expressa, principalmente na crise climática, ela está absolutamente ligada à crise social que se espraia pelo mundo, especialmente em países subdesenvolvidos, como é o caso do meu país. Somos um território gigante chamado Brasil. Um território que é abrigo para algumas corporações, inclusive as petrolíferas, de alguns países do mundo, do Reino Unido, a Total francesa, que venceu uma licitação para explorar petróleo no encontro entre o grande rio Amazonas e o mar, a 6 quilômetros de distância da minha cidade. Então, a luta é contra agentes muito poderosos nos vários territórios do planeta. O Brasil é abrigo para alguns poderosos e precisa ser abrigo para todos os brasileiros. Só que o tema que aqui tratamos é central, porque ele tem inviabilizado um caminho de desenvolvimento alternativo à destruição imanente ao processo atual. Então, um poeta, cantor brasileiro, mostrando a autoestima do povo, apesar das desigualdades, chegou a cantar: moro num país tropical, abençoado por Deus e bonito por natureza. Mas que beleza, em fevereiro tem carnaval. A despeito da alegria do nosso povo, há muita tristeza devido às desigualdades sociais e à crise ambiental que se expressa no desmatamento das florestas, especialmente da floresta amazônica, e no genocídio contra povos originários, que se dão fundamentalmente na minha região, a região amazônica. Então, o Brasil é um país tropical. A Amazônia representa 60% do território brasileiro. E ela está na faixa equatorial do globo. Significa dizer que nós vivemos numa região onde, em média, se tem 12 horas de sol por dia. E com as tecnologias disponíveis, não há sentido autorizar a exploração de novas fontes de energia baseada nos fósseis como o petróleo, como se tenta fazer no Brasil e na Amazônia. Hoje esse é um grande debate, se autoriza ou não a exploração de petróleo na Amazônia. O uso de energias limpas, portanto, é o nosso presente e é condição para o nosso futuro justo em termos sociais, sustentável em termos ecológicos e democrático, porque esse tripé é um tripé fundamental e são dimensões indissociáveis. Sem democracia não há sustentabilidade, não há combate às injustiças sociais e assim segue. Belém é uma importante metrópole da Amazônia, com quase 1.400.000 habitantes, fica a 2 graus sul do Equador. A diferença entre dias e noite é de 10 minutos no máximo. Portanto, a energia solar deve nos inspirar a construir uma nova matriz de desenvolvimento livre de combustíveis fósseis. Temos uma área continental importante, mas somos uma metrópole incrustada na floresta e 39 ilhas compõem um arquipélago que faz parte do território de Belém. Com referência a essa condição, quero expressar minha solidariedade aos povos das ilhas de Tuvalu e Vanuatu, que podem desaparecer se nós adiarmos as decisões necessárias quanto às fontes e à matriz de energia que pode permitir um desenvolvimento verdadeiramente sustentável. Quero concluir dizendo que urge um tratado de não proliferação de combustíveis fósseis. Muito obrigado.
Thank you so much, Mayor Edson Rodriguez of Belém. I think it's really powerful to hear the examples of cities that are located in places with struggles against fossil fuels. He mentioned only kilometers away the company Total is trying to open up oil licitation blocks, and how much of the country is actually Amazon. I think 60% is what he mentioned, and that there's 12 hours of sun every day. So there's no need to keep deepening into this fossil fuel model when we have abundant alternatives. And he said that the clean energy is both our present and our future. So I want to thank all three of you for being with us today, hearing the experiences from Belém, from Paris, and from Hobart. And that cities, again, are so essential in the energy transition we're trying to build. And you have given powerful examples of how we get to that fossil-free future with the initiatives and struggles that you are leading in your cities. And echoing your voices with the 100 cities and subnational governments from every continent on this earth to end fossil fuel expansion and propel a just energy transition for all. And it is time for world leaders to heed this call from 100 cities and subnational governments around the world for a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. So thank you so much.
Thanks.